I'm old enough to remember when we called people who didn't want to work slackers. Now we're into a thing called ghosting coasting. What's that? Wilkow starts now. Welcome to the program. I'm Andrew Wilkow. Have you ever heard of ghosting coasting? No? Well, it has nothing to do with Halloween. It's a new trend in the workforce where people just disappear. Now, they aren't missing persons per se. They're just not there for jobs they applied for. I'll explain in greater detail in just a bit. But the Great Reset, it's here. And the left has their collectivist fingers on the big blue button. The Democrats are set to raise the debt ceiling without a single Republican vote.
But you're not relying on your Republican friends to vote that way, right? You're fine with it passing in a Democrats only vote.
No, I'm not fine with that. But if that's what it takes, that's what it will take. The American people will see what the Republicans are doing on this front as well. They're doing enough on the social front to destroy the integrity of this country's fabric, and they will see them doing the same thing on the financial front. I think we ought to do what's necessary and message to the American people exactly who is trying to destroy this great democracy that we hope to keep in place.
President Biden thinks that by spending another $3.5 trillion that we do not have, that is not going to be generated by growing the tax base, that by somehow doing this, it's going to somehow lower the cost of living.
My Republican friends talk a lot about inflation. But if you want to talk about actually lowering the cost of living for people in this country, my plan does just that. By strengthening the capacity of our economy, we'll also reduce inflationary pressures over the long run.
Okay, none of that makes sense. But that's an old, big government Washington promise that, of course, we could just spend today and not pay for it tomorrow. Add to that the fact that Biden and the Democrats want to double the federal budget. From Bloomberg, quote, President Joe Biden is set to unveil a budget that would increase federal spending to $6 trillion in the coming fiscal year, with annual deficits of more than $1.3 trillion over the next decade, according to documents cited by the New York Times. The proposal, set to be publicly released on Friday, offers a full accounting of Biden's previously disclosed plans for trillions of dollars in new taxes and government spending, while also revealing for the first time how the administration believes inflation, employment, and economic growth would be affected by enacting his agenda. Spending would rise to $8.2 trillion by 2031. That's $8.2 trillion. That's double. Somewhere in there, Biden is promising working people a tax break.
For me, it's pretty simple. It's about time working people got the tax breaks in this country. That's what my plan does. And here's what it also does. By asking big corporations and the very wealthy to pay their fair share, it makes it possible to invest in America, to invest in the American people.
That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The government cannot continue to raise the debt ceiling, borrow, and expand the money supply, all the while leaving the border open and making payments to people to not work. The government only has one basic source of revenue: taxes. And it needs people and businesses to pay them. There are no divine resources in government. Right now, we are witnessing the Democrats attempt to use democracy to shrink the number of people who actually contribute to government spending versus those who receive from the government. Here's the truth. The unlimited many cannot be expected to be provided for by the static and shrinking few. The model does not work. I don't care how smart you think you are. The Democrats have basically dropped the shroud. They're a hard left Marxist party. Sure, they'll try to present a pragmatic center-left to reasonable progressive face, good old PR. But while pushing federal spending to $8.2 trillion, They are promising that expanding the money supply on top of the borrowing is going to somehow reduce the cost of living, and it's not. And it never will. Now, look, I'm not the biggest fan of Mitch McConnell. When we know the establishment types are good at the honey mouth game when they're out of power. Ryan and McConnell literally did nothing to address spending, and they raised the debt ceiling too. But here's Mitch.
The reckless taxing and spending spree the Democrats are riding behind closed doors is shaping up to be exactly what they promised. An effort to exploit this terrible but temporary pandemic as a Trojan horse for permanent socialism.
Okay, well, for now, Mitch, I'll take it. And at least one Democrat, one, is sounding somewhat sober here.
And if there's not enough clarity, then you need to get clarity, and people need to know what tax reforms and where we stand nationwide and where the inflation is, all the things I've talked about. So,
want it delayed till next year, right?
No, I didn't. You know what I said? I said, let's wait and see whatever we need. We'll need to have a good idea. The main thing is inflation. If it's transitory or not, you have a better idea as, once we get into it a little bit longer. But right now, inflation's still high, and now we understand that natural gas prices are higher than they've ever been in West Virginia, too. And the people that end up paying the highest is the ones that can't afford it. Mm-hmm. So we got to worry about all these things.
All right, Joe Manchin. Well, we'll see how long he lasts. But for now, I'll take it. We cannot go any further in this without adding immigration, the open border, and the lawlessness. Mass immigration, mass migration, endless refugees and asylum seekers. The Democrats want amnesty right now so bad they can taste it. Get it done. Get it through by any means necessary. Let's see them undo it. Let's see those evil conservatives and Republicans take away an illegal immigrant's or unvetted refugee citizenship. This is the plan. Use illegal methods to achieve your goals, then make the other side look bad. The non-citizen is the Democrats' canvas with unlimited potential to shape one-party rule. Oh, think of the new party registrations and all of that. The Democrats tell non-citizens that they are the world's victims, the broken parts of a decadent, deceitful capitalist system that has failed. What is needed is a new system, a global system, where there are no victims, where everything that is needed is granted for free. Free stuff, gifted at taxpayer expense to anyone who arrives. For generations, the Democrats have been trying to shrink the number of people paying taxes to ensure popular victories. But they did run into a little snag from the Associated Press. Senate parliamentarian deals blow to Dems' immigration push. Quote, Democrats can't use their $3.5 trillion package bolstering social and climate programs for their plan to give millions of immigrants a chance to become citizens. The Senate's parliamentarian said late Sunday, a crushing blow to what was the party's clearest pathway in years to attaining that long-sought goal. The decision by Elizabeth McDonough, the Senate's nonpartisan interpreter of its often enigmatic rules, is a damaging and disheartening setback for President Joe Biden, congressional Democrats, and their allies in the pro-immigration and progressive communities. Don't get so excited. The left isn't done here. But let's talk about the alleged cost for the 8 million illegals the Democrats want to ram down amnesty for. $140 billion. No, I'm sorry. Excuse me. It's a $139.6 billion. It's like 3 easy payments of $19.99. Don't think of it as $20. From the Washington Free Beacon, according to the Congressional Budget Office, the Democratic plan to legalize 8 million illegal immigrants will add $139.6 billion to the budget deficit by 2032, almost entirely due to increased use of entitlement programs and tax credits. Look, I don't care where you went to college. Your academic pedigree does not weigh the strength of my argument. I don't care what degree you have or how many. The simple fact is we cannot continue as a republic where there's an open border and a welfare state. So that brings us to this thing, ghosting, coasting. I want to make sure clear, does everyone know what ghosting is? Maybe you're not hip to it? Okay. I'm old enough to remember when you just let a call go to your answering machine. That's how old I am. But now when somebody wants to ghost someone, they just cut them off without notice. So their phone is blocked. They unfriend them on Facebook and social media. They just sort of disappear from your life without any warning. But now that's a trend in the workforce. Ghosting coasting is where workers take a job for like a day or two, then just stop showing up. Or they apply for a job and then don't bother to show up at all. From Business Insider, employees say ghosting coasting is a growing problem, but workers have their reasons for quietly walking away from a job. Recruiters in several industries say they've never seen anything like it. Quote, "We're in such desperate need that I would literally hire anyone that passes the background check," said one food service recruiter who's trying to staff a large food service contract. In the past 6 weeks alone, she told The Insider, she scheduled 58 interviews for jobs ranging from $14 to $20 an hour, and only 27 candidates showed up. From there, she scheduled 8 for onboarding after they passed a background check, only to have just 5 show up for work. Of those 5, 3 have ghosted her, leaving her 2 out of the original 58 she considered. "We're just understaffed and barely keeping our heads above water, and I'm at a complete loss as how to fix it," she said. Well, the Democrats know exactly what they're doing here. The pandemic has created an ad voting bloc that doesn't want to go to work anymore. Why should they? When Americans find out the hard way, though, when they can't be idle forever, they're going to find out that when they must return to work, their jobs will be filled by those who were once illegal. Look, I know it's creepy. You're not allowed to say it. We don't like this replacement theory thing. But that's exactly what the Democrats want. Fill the ranks with malleable non-citizens. Then, of course, make them citizens, pay them not to work, and then repeat. At that point, no matter how popular it is, the economy will no longer function. So here's the argument. The Republic cannot stand if the Democrats get their way on raising the debt ceiling for the purpose of ushering in millions and millions of people and paying people not to work. Those people will sponsor millions more, and then we'll give them access to every program under the sun. And again, paying people not to work, promoting the idea of idle consumerism. That's where people spend, but they don't work to make any money. We have millions now who refuse to work, but intend to be able to consume goods and services. And that leads them to becoming zero liability voters. That's someone who votes for spending, but does not contribute. You know, I guess it's true. Getting paid to do nothing just beats work. But just because people vote for something doesn't mean it works. No society can function absent of the majority tending to labor. When plunder becomes legal, people will vote for more plunder. You know, originally, the welfare system in this country was predicated on the many caring for the few. Now the model's rapidly moving towards the few owing up to the many. The left must be beat back politically. Sober stewards must be elected. The law must be enforced. And there must be an end to the endless march from the third world into the country of those being promised free stuff at the expense of formerly free people. We need to get a bunch of people back from playcation. The time is now. I said playcation, like playground, playtime, playcation. Because vacation assumes that you're taking time off from work. Or else you know what's going to happen if all of this continues? Somewhere out there is going to be a final straw and a very scared camel. All right, joining me now is Representative Chip Roy from Texas, the 21st Congressional District. How you doing, sir?
Well, I'm doing great personally, but the state of things right now is not particularly strong with respect to what Democrats are doing to our country. But we'll talk a little bit about that now.
Now, we got a few topics to get to. You were just down at Del Rio with Senator Ted Cruz. Look, we've seen the media's description of the scene. Can we get yours?
Yeah, well, so I've spent a lot of time down at the border. These are friends of mine, Border Patrol in particular, that I work with. But the people in the community, the leadership down there, the ranchers who are getting negatively impacted by what's happening. One thing I want to make clear to listeners out there is what's happening right now in Del Rio and the light that is now shining on that because we had such a large mass coming in here of Haitians. I'm glad that's brought a spotlight to the border. But look, we've been getting killed all year. We've had 1.4 million people apprehended. We've had something like 700,000 or 800,000 people who have come into this country and have stayed either because we haven't caught them or they were released. We've had 10,000 pounds of fentanyl pouring into our communities. what we're seeing with the Haitians is a product of that, because they know that Del Rio is the one place where the cartels don't have full ownership of it. So they targeted that. But these are not Haitians that were fleeing an earthquake. These are Haitians who were down in South America. We know this. And yesterday I tweeted out pictures of Chilean IDs, Brazilian passports, because they'd already been down there. They got together as a group, came to southern Mexico, and they were aggregated. The Mexicans were holding them, then they finally released them, and they bum rushed Del Rio last week. So now we've got a dangerous situation, and now we've got massive numbers of Haitians being released into the United States, with only some being deported back to Haiti.
I want to put two things together here. The Biden administration is restricting or withholding or rationing monoclonal antibodies from states that have Republican governors. This is not in any comparison to the attempt by the Trump administration to say to sanctuary cities and states, look, you're not getting federal funding here, because that's the law. The vaccine mandates and these other guidelines coming out of the Biden administration are not laws. So I don't know. I mean, I know why they're doing this. This is about punishing states run by Republicans. But your state and your district specifically, you're just about 100 miles from where this is all taking place. People are crossing the border illegally. They're not being tested. They're not being vetted. We reported that, and CBS has the story, that thousands of migrants in detention are refusing the vaccine shots before they're being released into the interior. So your state is now being impacted by both.
Absolutely correct. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, the President of the United States issued his unlawful, unconstitutional, arrogant, tyrannical order saying that businesses over 100 employees have to go around and force their employees to get vaccinated. My position on that is just do not follow that order. It's unlawful. It's unconstitutional. We'll have your back if you're a small business owner out there. Meanwhile, they then come after Texas, Florida, and other states, and they start restricting the supply of monoclonal antibodies. They're literally killing Texans because they want to make some sort of political statement, while they go around saying that they, in their infinite wisdom, know who should have to go get vaccinated. Don't worry about whether you've got natural immunity because you've had the virus that may be more powerful than a shot. No, they, in their infinite wisdom in Washington, are going to tell you how to live your life. They want to make you have a vaccine passport. They want to tell you how to live, and they're undermining our security and safety in the process. And it is very related because you've got wide open borders. Border Patrol tells me they've had upwards of 25% of groups there that were COVID positive. NGOs that are dumping people into hotels, and we know this is happening. It's legit, absolute proof that it's happened.
And I want to reiterate this. What Trump was doing or attempting to do was say to states like California, New York, New Jersey, we're not going to give you homeland security grants if you're going to violate federal law. As you just said, these vaccine mandates are not laws. So Biden is trying to punish states for what? Understanding that what he's doing is not rooted in law. So now he's saying to taxpayers in Texas, well, I don't care that you paid your federal income tax. I don't care that you've contributed to the federal government. You're not getting your monoclonal antibodies until you line up and do as we say.
That's exactly right. Look, I mean, this is an administration that is operating in a completely tyrannical fashion. I just want the American people to understand this. I mean, my position on this, we need to reject it wholly, fully. We need to stand by Border Patrol, stand up for securing our border. We should enforce Title 42, enforce migrant protection protocols, which a federal judge has ordered them to do. The governor of Texas ought to keep doing what he's doing by stepping up, having DPS down at the border, doing the one thing that we need to do with more DPS agents than Border Patrol agents now in Del Rio, because we're having to protect our state. And frankly, we ought to go even further. I do not accept that this president has any actual power over to tell me what to do with respect to my businesses, and he's certainly abandoning his constitutional duty to force the border. He is committing impeachable offenses by not actually faithfully executing the laws of the United States, in addition to what they just did in aiding and abetting the enemy in Afghanistan, and now what they're doing with abuse of power, harming Texas and cutting off their supply to medicines and trying to tell businesses what to do. I have no interest in continuing to acknowledge that he has power over me or Texans to do these things.
The Foundation for American Immigration Reform website puts, and this is their last reporting, it's costing about annually $12 billion to Texas tax to cover the cost of illegal immigration. I don't know offhand what other states are on the hook for, but Texas is upwards about 12, perhaps more, $12 billion. So the federal government is saying, we're just going to send these people into your interior. You're going to have to take care of them. We're not forcing them to get vaccinated. I notice, and again, we're seeing these stories out of these migrant detention facilities. They're not getting vaccinated, but they're not getting deported as a result of refusing the vaccine. So American citizens are being told to do what you're told to do or else. But the non-citizen is saying, well, I don't want this vaccine and I still want to come in. They're saying, okay, fine. Let the Texas taxpayer cover you.
Well, right. And Title 42 is the provision that President Trump was rightly using to actually secure the border at the border. We have the power under our law to turn them around and send them back to Mexico. We have the absolute power to do that. Trump was doing it. Biden won't. I have a discharge petition to force a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives to ensure that we actually enforce Title 42. We have right now about 160 Republicans on the bill and no Democrats. But I'd like to ask, and I want your listeners to ask, why won't the other 50 Republicans get on the bill? We should jam it down the throats of Democrats. We should stand up and say we should enforce Title 42. We should force them to adhere to the federal judge's ruling to enforce migrant protection protocols. Because, yes, Texas is taking it on the chin. $12 billion is a pretty good estimate, but it's probably even more than that. Every county in Texas, in the South Texas along the border, they pay $3,000 for every autopsy of a dead migrant. In Brooks County, that's 90 dead bodies. Your listeners need to hear this. 90 dead migrants in Brooks County, 75 dead migrants in the Del Rio sector, hundreds down near Hidalgo County, near McAllen. They're paying $3,000 for autopsies, $5,000 to bury them, having to deal with all of the damage to fences, livestock, the danger to their community, drugs pouring in. You damn right we're getting pissed off about this. And at some point, when the President of the United States refuses to do his jobs, we're damn well going to do it ourselves in Texas.
How do you deal with your colleagues that are referring to the images of Border Patrol agents on horseback as images of slavery? I mean, we had a bunch of journalists who clearly have never seen a horse up close saying they were whipping these migrants. They were not whipping. Those are horses. Those are the reins. What those agents were trying to do was not get thrown from the horse when the migrants were, coming at them across the border, flailing their arms. They didn't want the horses to stomp those migrants. They were trying to control the situation. Some of these Democrats act like they've never seen in the Capitol a mounted officer before.
Well, look, what they're doing right now is purposeful. It's race baiting because the Democratic Party is a absolutely vacuous, useless political party that its entire existence is built on the back of race baiting. That's what they're doing. And they are absolutely panicked because Hispanics in South Texas are finished with them. They're tired of a Democratic Party that tries to divide us by race and refuses to do their job to secure the border. And you've got these crazy Yankees and Californians who don't know anything about Texas, don't know anything about the border, who are going down and trying to say that these brave Border Patrol agents who go down and help save lives in the river, save lives of people dehydrating in the desert, save lives of young women who are pregnant with babies and are down there helping Haitians. I posted a picture yesterday of an agent down with this horse talking to a young Haitian boy. What kind of men do we have in this country that we're not protecting the vulnerable while we allow these radical leftists to go around and divide us by race and jam all of our institutions with critical race theory and cheap diversity officers? They're killing our country with this bull crap garbage, and we shouldn't take any more of it. And my Republican colleagues who are about to fund the Department of Defense without making them stop that and drafting our daughters should be ashamed of themselves because they're funding all of this garbage that's dividing our country.
I do want to get to that in just a second. You have the Biden administration looking to hire 80,000 new IRS agents, I guess, to count every penny we earn. Kamala Harris and the Democrats now want an investigation of what took place. So they want to send more federal agents down to the border, not to secure it, but to investigate the agents that were doing their job, did nothing wrong, were not engaged in any air fingers, quote, police brutality. There's just the image upset people in the White House press corps, and they didn't even understand the context. But now they want an investigation. For what? How about we not hire 80,000 new IRS agents and get 80,000 new Border Patrol agents?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, let's be clear. Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, is a liar. She's a liar. She's lying about people on the border who are carrying out their jobs to defend our country, and she should be ashamed of herself and she should be fired. The President of the United States is a liar. The President of the United States is not carrying out his constitutional duty to defend the border. He's lying about Border Patrol agents who are doing their job in order to divide people by race. This is the same FBI, the same feds who ran down to go investigate a supposed noose at a NASCAR race, which turned out to be total crap. Because all of this is about race baiting and division. And I'm tired of letting these people get away with their lies and their distortions about good people, good Texans doing their job to try to secure a country when they're abandoning it and migrants are dying and Texans are getting hurt.
Last thing on that. Should we be hopeful? Pramila Jayapal, your colleague who chairs the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and even the Speaker of the House said they're not going to vote to support this $3.5 trillion spending measure if they don't get reconciliation through, which is the 8 million. That's really what they're talking about, is the 8 million illegals they want to legalize. Should we be thankful or hopeful or optimistic that if the far left is going to uphold this, maybe the clock will run out?
Well, I mean, that's our goal and our hope, and obviously we're hoping that Senator Manchin, Senator Sinema hold the line in the Senate. They got to figure out how to get this through the Senate. I just saw news literally as we were coming on live here that there's some deal. Schumer and Pelosi are announcing that they've got the dollars and stuff figured out, but they still have a lot of fractures in their base. They've got Democrats who did not support them on $700 billion of fake prescription drug reforms that won't actually do a darn thing, and they say it'll save money and it won't. They've got massive tax increases in there. They're very divided on things like the SALT increases, the state and local tax deductions. They basically want to give a bunch of money to rich people, but they've got a few who are like, well, maybe we shouldn't do that. So they've got a lot of divisions on their side. I hope that those are the things that are exposed in the cracks. Unfortunately, Republicans do a pretty good job of never actually coming together to advance our agenda. They do a pretty good job of staying united to advance leftism. So I'm worried they will jam something through here in the coming weeks.
Give me the short take to wrap this. Why are we voting on the draft for women?
Because Republicans are frankly cowards who hide behind the Defense Department. That's what it is. They're going to say, oh, we're going to give a raise to our men and women in uniform. Meanwhile, they're going to say, even though we have 17 million able-bodied men of age eligible to be drafted if we needed a draft, which we don't, and we have a voluntary force of over 1 million who are serving totally fine, they're going to go agree to a woke box-checking exercise because they say, well, we're just going to have to vote for this even though we disagree with drafting our daughters. Let's be very clear. Today, there is no requirement that your daughter, your sister, your mom, your wife get drafted. Tomorrow, Congress will have voted to do that, and Republicans are going to vote to do it. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should have stood up and demanded that we actually just abolish the draft altogether if people have a problem with it, or leave it as it is with males being drafted. But under no circumstances am I going to allow my 10-year-old daughter, when she comes of age, to sign up for selective service for an administration like this freaking incompetent bunch who just abandoned people in Afghanistan, left $85 billion in the hands of the Taliban, are not securing our border, and are now coming in and telling us when I can be vaccinated, what I have to do, whether or not I can get monoclonal antibodies. I want to trust these asshats to come after and say they're not going to draft my daughter? Nuh-uh. I do have to leave it there, sir. Good stuff. Good stuff. We'll get you back, and I'll be talking to you on radio real soon. All right. God bless, Andrew. Take care. Representative Chip Roy, thanks for joining us. On a side note, I'm sure most of you by now have seen the footage that came out of Australia last week when it appeared to show police shooting anti-lockdown protesters with rubber bullets. Take a look.
They're throwing stuff now, and okay, they're shooting. They're now shooting. They're now shooting people. You can hear the, oh my God. They're just shooting at everyone now. The bullets are going flying through the place, and you can still see through here. There are kids here. This is an absolute disgrace to the show and remembrance that they've come here, taking it over, and causing violence and disruption to peaceful protesters.
How is it happening? Australia is a democracy, right? We are a constitutional republic. They are not. They don't have the right to keep and bear arms, and I would not suggest shooting police officers. That's not the point. I mean, the Second Amendment is there to prevent tyranny, but they're a democracy. We keep hearing from our left that we have to be more of a democracy and less of a republic. But how could that happen? I thought democracy made everything fair. Democracy restrained government. didn't let government overreach and use violence against the people. Isn't that what the whole defund the police movement's all about? That's democracy in action right there. These people are being shot with rubber bullets. We've seen other horrific images because their government just made a decision. So the next time somebody says, this is what democracy looks like, remind them of that. A man who needs no introduction around here, my friend Stu Burgier, host of Stu Does America, and of course, straight off the Glenn Beck program. This is becoming a regular thing now.
This is good. Thank you for inviting me. I usually don't get invited back to places more than once. Okay, good. I thought you were just getting desperate.
Well, after you had the Cuomo is awful mug, we were waiting for the next thing, and that is now the Hunter Biden laptop case. Can we put a picture of that up? There, HunterBidenLaptopCase.com. Are you really selling those?
Yes, they are real.
Those really available?
They are really real. You can get them. I mean, I keep thinking of the visual of someone in your office walking by your desk and looking down and seeing the laptop case that just says property of Hunter Biden on it. I mean, that one moment is worth the price of admission.
Or if your kid's got one of those school-issued laptops, send it back to school with them to their leftist teacher, like, hey,
you got another F in that class, didn't you?
On a serious note, though, Ben Schreckinger from Politico, not exactly. I mean, they are far to the right of the Blaze, right? Like their writers are way off there. They make the National Review look like a bunch of socialists. They're coming out. He's coming out with a book. They're all doing their stories on this book that he's got coming out about Biden's rise to power. That says, yeah, the story was real. The New York Post printed it. Twitter banned it. We were not allowed to see that story, according to the mainstream media, leading up to the election. And the Brian Stelters of the world were casting anyone who wanted to talk about it as right-wing outliers. But it's real.
Yeah, I mean, really fascinating that after all this time that's finally come out. Now, we knew it was real. We knew it was real. We knew that, I mean, Peter Schweizer has the laptop. He's currently in the middle of writing a book about this laptop. He's got access to the email accounts. What is going to come out of that book is going to be incredible. We've known for a long time that this thing was real. There was no reason they never denied it was real. They never said it wasn't real, which was a real, kind of a, I don't know, in the middle of a campaign, sort of a red flag there. They probably would have denied it if they didn't think it was theirs. They, as you point out, Twitter banned the nation's oldest newspaper from Twitter. Right around that time was when I wrote a column for the New York Post about Andrew Cuomo, and they couldn't even tweet it because they didn't have access to the account. I mean, that's completely insane. And we find out that it's just a true story. It's been a true story this entire time. And I think if you go back to that moment, look, it came kind of through the New York Post, which is at times right.
It's owned by Murdoch,
right? Rudy Giuliani was one of the guys saying that he had seen it. As the president's lawyer, there was some, I think, reason to be skeptical about the origin story of some of the stuff. Where you could say, wait a minute, Hunter Biden just left this laptop at a computer repair store, and at the end of the day, yeah, he's actually just that out of control that he left this laptop there. And whether the origin story was true or not, it was pretty clear early on that this was real material.
This was tangible stuff, though. This wasn't like, I don't know, the New York Times running anonymous op-eds or leaked information that either you trust the publication or you don't. There was a tangible piece of evidence that showed that Hunter Biden, through emails, may have been leveraging his father's name to make money. The media, like you said, no one actually denied it. They just went after anyone who tried to promote it or publicize it or publish it. It was kind of like the story about I'm trying to make sure I get this right. His girlfriend, who's really his dead brother's wife, took a gun that he had. For some reason, she felt the need to flee the house for whatever reason and dropped the gun off in a garbage can in a grocery store across the street from a public school in Delaware. And the media wanted no part of that story. Then he lied on a federal form. The media went out there and protected Hunter Biden because they didn't want him to drag down Joe Biden with any percentage of voters.
And that's really what the important part about this is, because Hunter Biden is obviously just you could argue, maybe Joe Biden is perfect and Hunter Biden is this wayward son that is just, he's Kendall from the HBO series Succession. He's just this out of control kid who is blowing up the family business. there's a world in which something like that could be true, but not here. These are pointing directly to Joe Biden, giving access to him while he was vice president, putting away thousands and thousands, if not more.
10% for the big guy.
10% of giant deals for the big guy. And of course, there's other accusations about the family stuff that was going on with Joe's brother and several other things. And what's interesting about this, I think, is the media in 2016, oddly, to I think you and I, blamed themselves for Donald Trump being elected.
They should have done more.
They should have done more. They shouldn't have even addressed the Hillary Clinton email scandal. People got that in their heads that was real. And sure, all they did was basically point out that it was not real, don't worry about it, and they covered for her the entire time, but they drew attention to it. They changed tactics in 2020. They said, you know what? When these things come out last minute, we're not going to talk about them at all. We can't risk 4 more years of this guy. It doesn't matter if afterward they say, well, we didn't follow journalism or we should have covered it. We'll deal with that later. This guy needs to go. That's why they didn't cover the last minute scandals with Gavin Newsom. They've decided to take this approach where they just won't talk about it. If they don't talk about it, you won't know about it. And they know, now that we're siloed, where the left can control their voters. They can just not talk about these things and it will never penetrate that silo. Conservatives talk about it, but they never even hear about this stuff, and they realize that this is a better way to go. Don't try to defend it, just don't talk about it.
The thing about the laptop story was it kind of buffered the Ukraine scandal, right? We saw a vice president who went out and bragged that he was threatening the president of the Ukraine, saying, look, if you don't get rid of this prosecutor who just so happens to be investigating the company where my son's making $1 million a year with no experience in oil or natural gas, he's not an engineer, he wasn't teaching them about drilling equipment, he had no executive leadership experience, but he was making like $1 million a year, and the government
all the time.
Yeah, right. The government was going after them. Biden says you're not getting your $1 billion of foreign aid unless that goes away. And then the laptop happens. So we start to see a pattern here of Hunter Biden going out there and selling access to his father, or saying, give me contracts. I know the right people. I can get you in with the right people in D.C. I can get you favored pieces of legislation or favored foreign aid packages. I can do it for you.
Yeah, and there's moments when you look at this and the way Joe Biden has treated it, where you maybe even can have some sympathy.
He'll tell you about Bo. Right?
Yeah, he'll tell you about Bo.
Shift
right. And you can almost have some sympathy for Joe Biden in a world where, like, one of his sons died, his daughter died, his mom died. He's been through tons of tragedies. He has like this son who's left, and he's just a complete catastrophe. He cannot live his life. He's sleeping with his dead brother's wife. All of these crazy. He's knocking up hookers, and strippers all over the place.
Denying kids.
Denying kids. That's incredible. Like, all of this stuff is going on, and like, look, you could say. And like the new book, Peril, that the Woodward book points to this, that they say that he's just this distraught father with this kid he knows is terrible, and they had these interventions for him and all these things. And like, you can almost like put yourself in a human position to understand that. In a way, you could say he's trying to protect his son, and he's constantly running interference for his son. But when you look at these emails, when you look at what's come out just so far, what we know, Joe Biden in this stuff. I mean, all appearances are.
Dare I say compromised?
Compromised, really. I mean, and Biden was never, he didn't come from like a hedge fund family. He's been in politics his entire life, and he's made plenty of money. He's got plenty of money, but he's not like, Michael Bloomberg.
No.
So he, multiple $1 million deals interest Joe Biden quite a bit. And, the fact that he was allowing this to go on and protecting his son. If you cared about your son, you would never let him do this art deal situation, right? You would make a statement. My son is out of control. We don't want this going on.
This can happen to any American family. Yeah. I'm just a dad.
I'm a dad. I can't do anything about this. This is out of control. I want the best for him, but he can't do this. The appearances are terrible. Anyone who buys one of these paintings, I'm never talking to again. But he didn't do that. He'd come up with a justification. Well, if we doesn't know about what happened.
It's his job, his chosen profession.
His chosen profession to be a $500,000 per painting artist that's never sold.
I want that job.
That's a great job. Yeah. It's a good gig if you can get it.
Let's move over, if we have time. The mayor of San Francisco and the Emmys, you could add that to Barack Obama's birthday and anything else. What we saw at the Emmys was the help were wearing the masks, right? The celebrities sitting side by side, all congratulating each other, no mask. The help. And then you get the mayor of San Francisco, who actually did order this mask mandate went to a club to see Tony. If you've never heard the song, look, put the camera back. No Loot. That's how long I've been in music radio. If I Had No Loot was their big 1993 hit. Okay, nothing since. But she made it sound like
she made it sound like John rose from the dead and the Beatles
like it's the
reunited.
Last Kiss concert in makeup forever. Like Ace and Peter are back.
They're
back.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it was not that. Tony. I love that excuse because really it made it sound like it was the reuniting of the Beatles in person for one last performance.
Elvis is back.
Elvis is back. They're singing together. They're doing
Supremes
duets.
Are getting, right?
It's like no, this is Tony, a band that almost nobody knows.
And I feel bad for them. Like it's look, I'm not. We're not here to hurt them, right?
No, not entirely.
You know,
no.
but that's not an excuse.
Right.
Like we have this science-based mandate that says you can without a mask on, but if you really like the band,
yeah. If you get moved. I mean, do 2-year-olds get moved by the spirit sometimes and want to dance?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. But you're forcing masks on them. You know, it's funny because you look at the laws, the way they're written in New York and San Francisco, they actually have LA too. They have carve-outs for celebrities. They have carve-outs for performers and athletes and all the right politicians, all the right people who don't need to be wearing masks. Those people, it's okay for them to not do it. But if you're a regular person, then you need to mask up. Even if you're 4 years old and have basically no risk whatsoever, even if you do catch COVID, it's disgraceful, but they just keep flaunting it. I mean, the images you're talking about where you see these people in these, the Met Gala and the award shows where they're all in these beautiful dresses and they're all hugging and hanging out at tables, not even performing, with no masks on, while people taking pictures next to them and serving them have to wear masks. I mean, isn't
it the most illiberal, I don't like to call them liberals because they're not liberty-minded, but illiberal is the word we Isn't that the most undemocratic or illiberal?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't like the word hypocrisy, I mean, these people are literally saying, over here is us and over there is you. And we are going to laugh it up. We are going to drink champagne. We are going to gather with the beautiful people. And you people are going to have rules and restrictions. We only got 30 seconds left, so I got to wrap this. We're going to do this again.
Yeah, definitely.
Next time. I just hope that democracy starts to understand this. These are the people you voted for. They have taken all of your freedoms and enjoyment away, but they've reserved it for themselves. All right, I got to leave it there. Do you have anything else coming up?
We got the show tonight. So Stu Does America, 5 days a week. And we have Will Witt on. That'll be a good one. And, HunterBidenLaptopCase.com.
Stu Burguiere, we'll get you back ASAP. Thank you for joining us. All right, here we go. Time now for parting shots. And today's parting shot is at America's pastime. Well, not really. It's really the organization we know as Major League Baseball. Headline, MLB moves bat production company from United States to China. So bats that were once made in Minnesota, in a small town called Caledonia, where thousands of people worked at the factory, are now going to be made in China. Chinese wood, Chinese labor. This is America's pastime. Now, I believe in the free market and all that good stuff, but it's America's pastime. You're telling me that woke Major League Baseball can't afford to make bats for America's pastime here in the United States? That's pathetic. We're right. They're wrong. That's the end of the story. The arguments on this television program cannot be broken. Make sure you catch me on SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125, noon to 3 East, 9 to noon West. From Dallas, Texas, I'm Andrew Wilkow. Thank you for watching Blaze TV.